She blushed, admitting, "You're my first," and the cowboy promised she'd forever be his only. Twin suns hung in the sky like glowing coins, casting long shadows across the dusty land. Most people avoided this frontier planet because it was quiet, harsh, and lonely. But for Jace Calder, it was home. Jace was known as a space cowboy. He lived alone on a remote ranch, herding bioengineered cattle that grazed on mineral plants scattered across the desert. His cabin stood on a small hill built from metal panels and old wood brought from Earth many years ago. Solar fences protected the land, and a wind tower turned slowly beside the barn. People said Jace talked more to animals than to humans. That was not completely true, but he did enjoy the silence. Out here, there were no crowded cities or loud markets, only wind, stars, and the steady rhythm of ranch life. One evening, as the suns began to set, Jace rode across the plains on his hover horse, a mechanical creature designed to move smoothly over sand. He guided a small herd back toward the ranch, checking each animal carefully.
Everything seemed normal. Then he saw something strange.
A trail of smoke rose from the far dunes. Jace narrowed his eyes. Smoke meant trouble. It could be smugglers, broken machines, or sometimes fallen ships. He turned the hover horse toward the smoke and rode faster. As he reached the site, he saw a silver escape pod half buried in sand. The surface shimmered faintly, covered with alien symbols that glowed softly like moonlight. The pod was unlike any transport used by local traders. Jace dismounted slowly. He approached with caution but without fear. The hatch was cracked open and warm air escaped from inside. Someone was there. He pulled the door wider and looked inside. A young woman lay curled against the seat, breathing softly. Her skin looked pale under the red light of the desert. Her hair fell across her face like silver threads, and her clothes were made from a smooth material that shifted color slightly when touched by light. She looked human, but not entirely. Her eyes opened suddenly, glowing faintly with patterns like distant stars. She stared at Jace, confusion and fear mixed together. Jace raised his hands gently. "Easy," he said in a calm voice. "You're safe." She blinked slowly, as if trying to understand his language. Her lips moved, but no words came out. She looked weak, exhausted. Jace reached forward carefully and helped her sit up. She trembled slightly, and he could feel how cold she was, despite the warm air. "Can you stand?" he asked softly. She nodded, though uncertainly. Jace guided her out of the pod. The desert wind brushed against them, carrying fine red dust through the air. She looked around, eyes wide with wonder and worry. He didn't ask many questions. Out here, people learned to help first and talk later. He lifted her onto the hover horse behind him and secured her gently. Then he turned toward the ranch and rode home as darkness slowly covered the sky. The cabin lights glowed warmly when they arrived. Jace helped her inside and placed a blanket around her shoulders. The smell of cooked grains filled the room, simple but comforting. She watched everything carefully. The walls, the tools, the small decorations made from stone and metal. Her expression showed curiosity mixed with nervousness. Jace handed her a cup of warm water. She hesitated before drinking, studying him as if trying to decide whether he could be trusted. After a moment, she drank slowly. "Good," he said. "You need rest," her voice soft and careful. "You saved me. Just found you." Over the next hours, she rested on a small bed while Jace checked the pod data through his console. The technology was advanced, far beyond local equipment. Whoever she was, she came from somewhere powerful. He decided not to ask too much yet. When she woke again, she seemed stronger. She watched him cook quietly, following his movements with gentle curiosity. "My name is Jace," he said finally. She hesitated before answering. "Lyra." The name felt soft, almost musical. "Well, Lyra," he said, placing food in front of her, "you can stay here until you figure things out." "You don't want payment?" Jace almost laughed. Out here, people help each other. She stared at him for a long moment, as if those words surprised her more than anything else. Days passed slowly. Lyra stayed at the ranch, learning simple routines. She followed Jace while he worked, watching how he repaired fences and guided animals. At first she seemed unsure of everything, but she learned quickly. One morning he handed her riding gloves. She looked confused. "You're learning," he said. Her first attempt at riding the hover horse ended with nervous laughter when she nearly lost balance. Jace steadied her calmly, never mocking or rushing her. Gradually, she began to relax. She smiled more. She asked questions about stars, ranch life, and Earth history. Sometimes she grew quiet, staring at the horizon as if remembering something painful. One evening, they sat outside under the glowing sky. 3 moons rose slowly above the desert, lighting the sand with pale silver light. Lyra wrapped her arms around herself, watching the stars. "I never lived like this before," she said softly. "So free." Jace nodded but said nothing. He understood silence better than conversation. She turned toward him suddenly, cheeks turning slightly red.
"You treat me normal."
He looked confused. "You are normal." Her blush deepened, and she looked away quickly. For a moment neither spoke. Then she whispered, "I was not free before." Jace felt there was more she wanted to say, but he didn't push. Instead, he said quietly, "You're safe here." Slowly, she nodded. Far above Red Mesa, hidden beyond the planet's atmosphere, a dark warship drifted silently. Its sensors scanned the surface, searching for a specific energy signature. A voice echoed through the command room. "Target signal detected, weak but present." The commander stepped forward, watching the glowing display. "Prepare descent scouts," he ordered calmly. "We have found her." Back on the ranch, Lyra laughed softly as she learned to guide the cattle alongside Jace. The sound surprised him. He had not heard laughter in this place for a long time. The quiet ranch no longer felt empty. But as the wind shifted that evening, Jace felt something change in the air, a feeling he could not explain. Trouble was coming. And neither of them knew how much their lives were about to change. The days on Red Mesa moved slowly, but something had changed on the ranch. The quiet that once surrounded Jace Calder no longer felt heavy. Lyra's presence filled the empty spaces with small sounds, soft laughter, curious questions, and the gentle rhythm of 2 people learning to share the same world. Early each morning, the twin suns rose over the desert, painting the sky with deep orange light. Jace checked the fences while Lyra followed beside him, still learning but growing more confident with each step. She handled tools carefully, studying everything as if she wanted to understand not only how things worked, but why. Jace noticed how quickly she learned. Within a few days, she could guide the hover horse smoothly across sand, and the animals seemed strangely calm around her. The bio-cattle, normally stubborn and slow, moved easily when she walked near them. "You have a way with them?" Jace said one afternoon. Lyra smiled shyly. "They feel safe. I don't know why." Jace watched her closely. There was something different about her, something deeper than skill, but he chose not to ask too many questions. Out here, trust was built slowly. One evening, while repairing a broken solar panel, Lyra hesitated before speaking. "Can I tell you something?" Jace nodded without looking up. "I was not supposed to leave my world," she said quietly. "I belong to a powerful family. People expect things from me." Jace tightened the bolt carefully before answering. "Sounds heavy." She laughed softly, though sadness hid behind it. "Yes, everything decided for me. Even who I would stand beside for life." Jace understood more than she realized. Frontier planets were full of people running from something. Expectations, mistakes, or past lives that did not fit them anymore. "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want," he said. She looked relieved by his simple response. Most people she had known demanded explanations. Jace offered only patience. That night they shared a quiet meal inside the cabin. Outside, wind brushed against metal walls, creating a soft humming sound. Lyra watched Jace while he worked, noticing how he moved with calm confidence. He did not speak much, but every action showed care. The way he fixed broken tools, checked animal health, and watched the sky for weather changes. "You live alone for long?" she asked. "Years," he said simply. "Wasn't it lonely?" "Sometimes, but peaceful too." She nodded slowly, understanding that peace and loneliness often lived together. As days passed, Lyra's confidence grew. She laughed more easily, and her eyes no longer carried constant fear. Yet sometimes she stood outside at night, staring at the stars as if searching for something. One such evening, Jace approached quietly. "You're waiting for someone?" he asked. "Maybe afraid someone is waiting for me." Jace sensed the truth behind her words. Whoever she had escaped from would not give up easily. "We'll deal with it when it comes," he said calmly. His confidence surprised her. Most people feared powerful forces, but Jace spoke as if trouble were simply another storm to ride through. Later that week, while guiding cattle through a narrow canyon, a sudden sand gust forced Lyra's hover horse off balance. She gasped, gripping the reins tightly. Jace rode closer, steadying her with a firm hand. "Relax," he said softly. "Let the machine feel your calm." She closed her eyes briefly and followed his advice. The hover horse stabilized instantly. She laughed nervously afterward. I thought I would fall. You didn't, he replied. She looked at him then, really looked, and a faint blush colored her cheeks. Something about his quiet strength made her feel safe in ways she had never experienced before. Later that night, while fixing a damaged fence, Lyra touched a broken energy wire carefully. For a moment, light flickered around her fingers, and the wire repaired itself. Jace froze. You did that? He asked. Lyra pulled her hand back quickly, worried. I didn't mean to show. He studied her silently. There was no fear in his eyes, only curiosity. My people have abilities connected to energy, she explained slowly, but I was trained to hide it. Seems useful on a ranch. Her eyes widened, surprised again by his lack of judgment. You're not afraid? She asked. Everyone has something special, he said simply. Yours just glows a little. She laughed softly at that. The peaceful days continued, but tension slowly grew beneath the surface. Jace noticed unusual signals on his scanner, faint energy signatures moving across the planet. He said nothing at first, not wanting to worry her, but one morning distant lights appeared in the sky, small ships descending through clouds. Her expression changed instantly. Jace followed her gaze toward the horizon. 3 dark shapes moved closer, silent and fast. Friends? He asked calmly. She shook her head. Then we prepare, he said. There was no panic in his voice, only quiet determination. He began checking the ranch defenses, activating old sensor drones, adjusting shield emitters, and moving animals into protected areas.
Lyra watched him, amazed at how quickly he adapted.
You don't have to risk yourself for me, she said softly. Jay stopped and looked at her directly. You're here. That's enough reason. No one had ever chosen to stand beside her without expecting something in return. As night fell, the ships landed beyond the hills. Small lights moved through the darkness, scouts searching. Lyra's hands trembled slightly. Memories of control and expectation returned to her mind. Jace handed her a warm drink and sat beside her outside the cabin. Whatever happens, he said quietly, you decide your own path. She stared at him, cheeks warming again. Her voice dropped to a whisper. No one ever said that to me before. Silence filled the space between them, but it was no longer uncomfortable. It felt strong, like trust forming slowly. In the distance, a faint mechanical sound echoed across the desert. The scouts were getting closer. Lyra felt fear rise inside her, but when she looked at Jace, she felt something stronger than fear. Hope. The quiet ranch, once empty, now stood on the edge of change. And this time, she would not face her past alone. Night settled over Red Mesa like a quiet blanket, but there was nothing peaceful about the air anymore. The desert wind carried a low mechanical hum, almost too soft to hear unless someone listened carefully. Jace Calder listened. He stood outside the cabin, scanning the horizon through a small handheld device. Red lights blinked across the display, showing movement beyond the hills. The scouts had landed and were spreading out slowly, searching with patience. Behind him, Lyra stepped onto the porch. She wrapped her arms around herself, watching the darkness with worried eyes. They won't stop, she said quietly. They believe I belong to them. No one belongs to anyone. The simple words made her chest tighten. She had spent her life hearing the opposite. Promises made without her consent, alliances decided without her voice. But they have power, she said softly. So do we, Jace replied. He wasn't speaking about weapons. Lyra could hear the deeper meaning in his tone. Trust, choice, and courage. Jace began preparing the ranch carefully. He checked energy fences, moved portable shields into position, and activated old drones that circled quietly above the land. Nothing looked aggressive, but everything was ready to protect. Lyra followed him, feeling both grateful and guilty. You shouldn't risk your home for me, she said again. Jace stopped walking and faced her. This is my home, and right now, you're part of it. Her cheeks warmed slightly at his words. She looked down quickly, unsure how to respond. The first scout appeared just before midnight. A small floating machine moved silently above the sand, scanning the ground with soft beams of blue light. It hovered closer to the ranch, unaware of the hidden traps Jace had placed earlier. A sudden flash surrounded it. Not an explosion, but a burst of electromagnetic energy. The machine froze mid-air and dropped harmlessly into the sand. Lyra watched in surprise. You disabled it? Ranch tools. Nothing fancy. She smiled faintly. His calm confidence helped ease her fear, but more lights appeared in the distance. "They're testing defenses," Lyra said. "Then we show them this isn't easy land," Jace answered. The next few hours passed slowly. Small machines approached, only to be stopped by clever traps and energy field. Jace never used force that could destroy, only methods that blocked or redirected. He wanted to protect, not harm. Lyra felt her respect for him grow stronger. During a quiet moment, she noticed how tired he looked. She stepped closer. "You haven't rested," she said. "I will," he replied. "After this." She hesitated before reaching for his hand. A soft glow appeared where her fingers touched his skin. Warm and gentle, energy flowed between them, easing his exhaustion. Jace looked surprised but not afraid. "I can help," she said softly. He gave a small smile. "Seems like a fair trade. I fix fences. You fix cowboys." She laughed quietly, and the sound felt like sunlight in the darkness. As dawn approached, a larger ship appeared above the horizon. It moved slowly, powerful, and silent. Lyra's expression changed instantly. "That's not a scout," she whispered. "That means the commander has arrived." The ship hovered above the desert, casting a long shadow across the land. A single transport descended and landed a short distance away. 3 figures stepped out, tall, calm, and dressed in advanced armor that reflected the rising suns. Lyra's hands trembled slightly. Jace noticed and stepped closer beside her. "You don't have to face them alone," he said. She nodded, drawing strength from his presence. The figures approached slowly, stopping at the edge of the ranch. One of them spoke, voice calm but firm. "Lyra, you are requested to return peacefully." Lyra took a step forward but did not cross the fence line. "I am not returning." The figure tilted its head slightly. "Your duty remains unchanged." "My life is not a duty," she replied, her voice stronger now. Jace stood silently beside her, hands relaxed but ready. The figure's gaze shifted toward him. "You are interfering with interstellar authority." Jace shrugged lightly. "Just protecting my ranch." There was no anger in his voice, only quiet certainty. The visitors paused, clearly not expecting resistance without aggression. "You misunderstand the situation," the figure said. "She carries responsibilities beyond your understanding." Lyra lifted her chin. "I understand my own choices." A soft glow appeared around her, stronger than before. Energy moved through the air like gentle waves. Jace glanced at her with calm curiosity. "Didn't know you could do that," he murmured. "Neither did I," she admitted. The glow expanded slightly, forming a protective field around the ranch. The visitors stepped back, reassessing. After a moment, they retreated toward their ship. "They will return," Lyra said. "Good," Jace replied. "Gives us time." Later that day, they sat outside the cabin again. The tension had not disappeared, but something deeper had formed between them. Lyra watched the horizon quietly. "I always thought power meant control," she said slowly. "But you don't try to control anything. Control breaks things, choice builds them." "I never trusted anyone like this before," she whispered. He nodded gently. "Trust takes time." Silence followed, comfortable and warm. After a moment, she spoke again, voice almost shy. "Where I come from, relationships were contracts. Planned. Perfect on paper. And now?" he asked. She blushed faintly. "Now I think maybe simple is better." Jace smiled slightly, though he said nothing. As night returned, the warship above Red Mesa adjusted position. New energy signals appeared on Jace's scanner, stronger, more focused. The commander was preparing something bigger. Lyra felt it too, her abilities stirred, responding to the growing pressure. She looked at Jace, fear mixing with determination. They won't give up easily. She smiled softly at that. The desert wind rose again, carrying sand across the plains like waves on an ocean. The final confrontation was coming. But this time Lyra no longer felt alone. And for the first time in her life she was ready to fight. Not because she had to, but because she chose to stand beside someone who believed in her freedom. The morning sun rose over Red Mesa, casting long shadows across the desert. The twin suns painted the sand in shades of orange and gold, and for a moment the world seemed quiet. But quiet was never lasting out here. The hum of the approaching warship echoed faintly in the distance, a constant reminder that danger was near. Lyra stood beside Jace, both of them looking toward the horizon. She was calmer now, though a flicker of fear remained in her eyes. She had faced powerful people before, but never like this. Never without the chance to make her own choices. "They're coming," she whispered. Jace nodded. "Then we face them together." His voice was calm, steady, filled with certainty. It gave her courage. For the first time in her life, she felt truly safe, not because anyone promised it, but because someone chose to protect her freely. They spent the morning preparing. The ranch's defenses were ready. Energy fields hummed quietly, hidden traps lined the desert paths, and the cattle were guided to a safe enclosure. Lyra helped with her abilities, guiding energy fields around vulnerable points, controlling their flow to create invisible shields. Every time she touched the lines, she felt a strange warmth, as if the desert itself was responding to her presence. Jace watched her, impressed by how quickly she adapted. "You're stronger than you think," he said. Lyra's cheeks warmed slightly. "I learned from necessity," she replied softly, "and from you." Jace didn't answer immediately. Instead, he adjusted a panel on the hover horse barn, making sure the machinery would operate smoothly under stress. His focus was sharp, but his eyes often flicked toward her. He didn't know how long they would have, but he wanted her to see. The world could be harsh, but moments like this were worth holding on to. By midday, the warship was visible in the sky. A massive shadow moved across the desert, casting a chill even in the heat. Its energy was intense, a constant reminder that the commander was nearby, watching, waiting. "They'll try to intimidate us first," Jace said, his voice quiet but firm. "Stay close." "I won't let them take me," she said. "You won't need to," Jace replied. "Not while I'm here." His words made her chest tighten. They were simple words, but they carried weight, not promises of ownership, but of choice. She realized then that Jace didn't see her as someone to protect for duty or gain. He saw her as a partner. Commander's transport landed just beyond the hill. 3 armored figures stepped out, sleek and powerful, their weapons resting casually but ready. Their leader, tall, imposing, voice calm but sharp, approached the ranch. "Lyra," he said, "return with us."
"You belong to the Alliance." Lyra stepped forward.
She felt the wind against her face, the desert at her back. "I belong to myself," she said clearly, and her voice held strength Jace had not heard from her before. The commander tilted his head. "You do not understand the consequences of disobedience." "I understand more than you think," she replied, energy beginning to glow faintly around her hands. The desert responded, small dust clouds forming as if drawn to her power. Jace stepped beside her, calm but ready. "She decides her own path," he said firmly. For a moment, silence fell. The desert wind whipped around them, the twin suns blinding and beautiful, highlighting the tension in the air. The commander studied them carefully, clearly not expecting resistance without brute force. Suddenly, the commander's voice broke the stillness. "If you refuse, you leave me no choice. I've had enough of people choosing for me. I choose my life." She extended her hands slowly, letting her energy flow outward. It wasn't violent, it wasn't destructive, it was protective, forming a soft, shimmering barrier around the ranch. The commander and his guards hesitated. None of their scanners could penetrate it, and their instruments reacted strangely to her energy. Jace watched with quiet satisfaction. "Looks like you've got it under control," he murmured. Lyra looked at him, eyes wide, cheeks warming. "You believe I can do this?" "I believe in choice," Jace replied, "and you're choosing wisely." The commander realized brute force would not work. He gestured to retreat, but his eyes lingered on Lyra. "This isn't over," he said. "It is for now," Lyra said. The guards returned to the transport, and the ship lifted slowly, disappearing beyond the horizon. The desert returned to quiet, except for the soft hum of the wind and distant animal calls. After the danger passed, Lyra sank to the ground, exhaustion mixing with relief. Jace knelt beside her, offering a hand. "You did well," he said. "Better than I expected." She shook her head, smiling faintly. "I couldn't have done it without you." Jace's lips curved slightly. "You could. But it's easier when someone has your back." The words made her heart race. She had never experienced someone standing beside her for no reason other than choice. It was freeing, and terrifying and wonderful all at once. I think I trust you," she whispered, blushing deeply. Jace's hand brushed hers gently. "I'll earn that trust every day if you let me." Her smile grew shy but genuine. "I want that." For the first time, the two of them laughed together, the sound carrying across the desert like music. The tension of fear and expectation lifted, replaced by something stronger, connection, respect, and the beginnings of love. They worked together to repair minor damages from the conflict, feeding the cattle and checking fences. Lyra's abilities still pulsed softly around her, but she learned to control them better with Jace's guidance. As the suns began to set, they rode across the open desert. The wind whipped past them, the hover horses moving smoothly over the sand. They didn't speak much. Words were unnecessary. The silence was comfortable, filled with shared understanding and unspoken promises. At the top of a small dune, they stopped. The horizon glowed gold and crimson, the twin suns preparing to set. Lyra turned toward Jace, her eyes shining with quiet emotion. "I never thought I'd feel this," she said softly. "I never thought someone would care without expecting anything." Jace looked at her, expression calm and steady. "I do care, and I always will. Not because I have to, but because I choose to." Lyra's face warmed, and she lowered her eyes for a moment, hiding a shy smile. "You're my first." "In so many ways," she admitted. Jace's eyes softened. He reached for her hand, holding it gently. "Then you'll also be my only. Forever, if you want." Tears sparkled in her eyes, not of fear, but of relief and happiness. She nodded, unable to speak, and leaned slightly against him as the suns dipped below the horizon. The desert wind whispered around them. The stars began to appear, tiny points of light in the vast sky. The world was still dangerous, still unpredictable, but for this moment, they were free.
They had choice. They had each other.
And that was enough. As night fell, the cabin glowed warmly in the distance.
Lyra and Jace rode slowly back, side by side. The future was uncertain. More challenges would come. More forces would try to control or manipulate them. But they faced it together, their bond stronger than any fear. Lyra looked at Jace again, feeling a deep, quiet joy. "I never thought I'd feel safe," she whispered. "Safety isn't about walls or weapons," Jace said. "It's about trust, and we've got plenty of that. Then I'm staying." He smiled, feeling the weight of years of loneliness lifting. "Good. I wouldn't have it any other way." Together they rode toward the cabin under the stars, the desert stretching endlessly around them. The wind, the sand, the twin moons, all of it belonged to them for the first time. And in that quiet moment, on a frontier planet filled with dust, stars, and endless possibilities, two souls found each other. They were no longer alone. They were partners, friends, and more than that, they were a promise of something new, something enduring, and something truly theirs. Red Mesa, vast and wild, had never felt so alive, and the adventure was only just beginning.